Hi everyone, welcome to this new session. This time it's a bit particular. We are going to talk about the access rights in Odoo. So it's part of our Odoo Insider series, but this time it's pre-recorded. So we wanted to have a look at the access rights in Odoo. We made a video a few years ago, something like this one, but it was 5 years ago. It was in the old interface. And some people were saying, okay, it would be time somehow to create a new one and update this video that we made on YouTube, and I think they are right, and so that's why we decided to cover again the access rights in Odoo and see how you can understand it better, because it's really a key component in what people do in Odoo. So let's dive into Odoo. If you have questions, as you know, it's pre-recorded, so you cannot really ask in live, but there are many ways we can get in touch, enter in contact with you. You can comment different places. If it's on YouTube, comment on YouTube, we'll have a look. If it's LinkedIn, you can do the same. Or the best way is eventually next week, let's discuss all together and ask the questions that you had watching the video, and we will answer live. I think it's even the better way to answer your questions. All right, so let's have a look at Odoo. You can see here I'm connected at the moment. For reference, I'm using a SaaS version. I'm in 17.4. We can have a quick look at that. But it doesn't matter so much. I was explaining that we had to remake a new video right now because the previous one was in version 12, but it's weird, but not so much changed in terms of access rights. We improved a lot the usability, but the core principles didn't change that much. So here it's more a refresher in terms of interface, redoing things that we already explained, but this time in a new interface. If you watch this and you are already in version 18 or maybe 19, we don't know how long this video will be available on YouTube. I think there are lots of chances that what I'm explaining right now will be still completely valid. So let's have a look at the few concepts that we have around the access right, and I think that the easier one to understand first is the notion of user. The notion of user, which is different, by the way, from a contact or an employee, I will come back to this in a few moments, is the person that you connect with when you are using Odoo. And here you see I have one of my colleagues that is here, and I have two fake accounts that I mostly use for connecting and testing a few things. And I will, I think, reuse them to connect later today, just to test the access right that we will assign to some people here. I'm connected at the moment with that person. Here you see a big A, but that's Antoine, that's myself. You see the same icon, so you see it here. And that person is the person I'm connected with. And because I'm connected with this account, I will have the access rights that are attached to that person. We'll see the definition of those ones just in a moment. Time for me to explain what I was saying before, that difference between the notion of a user, an employee, and a contact is the following. When you have a look at Odoo, you see first one of the applications that everyone goes to is the notion of contact, and you know that here when you install demo data, you have a lot of information, like we have Deco Addict, we have that guy, that's Michael, we have a few people, and all those people, as you can see, they are contacts. You don't see it technically from here, but you know it because those are part of your access, your address book. You see the pictures, you create them here by clicking on new. They can be individuals or companies. Those are the contacts that you created manually or through import yourself inside Odoo. Technically speaking, and I'm going to directly dive here into the debug mode. Most of the video we will need it anyway, so I know it's maybe sometimes problematic when we have the debug mode, because very often we go and we stop the cursor on a field and then you see that black pop-up, but we are going to use it anyway, so I will stay in debug mode for this presentation. I just wanted to go back to this notion, because somehow I think that when we talk about the access right, it's the place where we are discussing between functional and technical things. So it's not so bad to have a quick look at what it is exactly a contact. And usually here you see we have the model of the view. I'm going one place just to show the technical name, and that contact information is what we call, in terms of model, one REST partner. Before version 17 dot something, it was possible to show that information directly in the URL, but we changed the way URL are formatted, so you don't see anymore something like we had something like this model is REST partner. We had that before in version 16 still, but we don't have that anymore. So one of the ways to find the right model is going there or clicking on view fields and clicking on the field. You see again the contact. There are a few places that when you are in debug mode, you can check. I think edit action is going to give you the object name, technical name right away. So that works as well. Different places you can find that model name. It will help later if you need to find exactly the right model name when you are going to create access rights. So that is for the contact. And in terms of employees, do I have the employee module installed? Here we have less. You see there are similarities because some people are in the employees and both employees and contacts. And again, the user is here and we have a few contacts. And then when we talk about the employees and that are employees and contacts, you see that here we manage the HR side of one person. So we saw the contacts, it's more like clients, suppliers, also some information related to our employees, where you see some address information, the prices that they need to use, the fiscal positions, lots of things that are more like client and supplier related. If you are looking for the information about the HR, like what is your human resource, does that person knows or practice that or that language, the resume information, you see the skills, some work information like how much time they spend during the week at the office, all those kind of information, also the cost that they have, that will be found here on the employee side. So those are kind of different faces of the same concept somehow. And here you have also that link with the user that I'm going to talk about. You see that here we find the users list that I had before the introduction of this video. And here if I select Antoine, I see this one as a related user. You can have employees that don't have any related user. That's a possibility. Sometimes maybe you want to use Odoo and have a few users but many employees and manage the timesheets of those employees inside Odoo without having a user for one of each of your employee. But it's more convenient here once you have an employee and a related user, because you are connected with a user. Every time Odoo needs an employee, it will select the employee linked to your user. So Odoo is making the things happen automatically thanks to those kind of configurations. Okay, so contact, employees, and then user. User is really the main topic of the day because we are going to see what it means to be a user. First, maybe what I need to explain here is that when we talk about you using Odoo, you always do that under the name of a user. There are no exceptions to this. You need to connect as someone, even when you use the API. So you are not technically connecting through the interface, but you are connecting to Odoo through code, maybe instead of going into a login and password and entering it with your finger on your keyboard. That is different, but it's still the same concept. You need to be connected as someone. So here I'm connected as this user that we have here, and it was generated at the moment that I created the database. So every time I create a database, there's at least one user. If you are on site, by default, if you don't change the name, it will be admin. Just the login will be admin, and I think the name will be admin as well. On Odoo, if you go on odoo.com and that you go, we can go on the main page. Again, it will put it in French. I will switch that for the day. And then you have that link to the trial mode. And there, when you do this and you click on continue, it will use the first and last name as your username at first, but give you the full access rights because you are the one creating the database and the company, so you should be the administrator of it. We'll see what it means to be an administrator as well. Okay, so I'm with Antoine here. And because I'm in debug mode, I already have a look at something that is very, very particular here, that is a user type. This is a notion that is between the notion of user and group, and it will allow me to make a transition between that first notion of user that we discovered now and the notion of group. But when you want to ask to add a user to Odoo, you need to explain if it's an internal user, so someone part of your company or of one of the companies that you are going to use in Odoo, or if it's somebody that is external. And if it is external, there are two different types, portal or public. In fact, public is very, very specific case, but portal is usually the people that are outside of your company, but that may be using Odoo in a way. The best example I have for a portal user is your clients. Maybe your clients are using Odoo as a portal user because they have a login and a password, so they are a user. You have a login and password, you are a user, but maybe they cannot access the backend. So maybe they cannot see this when they go on the URL and they type /Odoo at the end, they won't be able to access it. But they do have access to the part that is the front end. If they go here, they will be able to see, I don't know, the events, register to something, and they will have that my account place. And here you see, because I have a name here, it means that I'm connected. If you are a partner of Odoo or if you are a client of Odoo, you have access to the same kind of feature directly from Odoo. If I go here, I see my account, my databases, my applications. It's the same notion. So you have a login and password, but you don't see the backend because you are not part of that company. So that is the notion of portal. And public, it's very, very specific. Usually there's only one public user. It's just the technical trick that we are going to use to say that when someone is going to connect as a visitor on the website and ordering something on a web shop, for example, but is not yet connected because he will connect later and will create an account later, we still want him to be able to continue the flow, add things, put them in the cart, shop online, and then later only we'll get the information. But as technically we are going to require a partner on the sale order and some information around the user, we are going to use a technical user that is public, and I think that this one, you will find it here, going to the inactive users, you are going to find that portal user. Okay. That is a quick introduction about the users. So very important, of course, nothing will work if you don't have access to that user notion, and if you don't understand what it means. I was saying that I was going to use this notion to make a switch between the notion of user and the notion of group, because here we see it's a notion of user type, but technically speaking, if I have a look at this, it's a group. Internal user inside Odoo is a group. And then we see, it's a nice transition because you see at the bottom here, we are going to have other notions that we don't maybe know what they are yet, but they are groups as well. If I go here in the sales, I see that can be a sale own documents only, or I can have a look at all the documents. Here field service, I'm an administrator. So that's simply because as I have the access right to change my own access rights, I'm administrator everywhere. So that's how I did it. It's simply also because I created a database. And then at the bottom of the page, we have a few extra technical groups. Everything here, again, are groups. All those technical groups that we can see here, we'll see the definition of them. But this one's very important. You will only be able to see this part if you are in debug mode. So sometimes I get asked, okay, but I don't see all those access rights that you have access to. That's simply because you need to enable the debug mode. Okay, so let's have a look maybe at what it means, that notion of group that I was saying. In fact, we realize that my user here is connected, or at least has accesses to sales things, services things, accounting, inventory, and those things are groups, as I was saying. And if I want to see the definition of that group, and that's maybe a hint that I can give you in general in terms of Odoo comprehension. When you don't know something and you want to discover a concept, just dive into it. Like if you want to know what a group is, you can click on groups, and then you see all the groups, and we are going to see what it means to have a group. Let's have a look at the accountant notion here. One of the groups I could see at the beginning in my screen. What it says is that, okay, we have it's in the accounting application, and we see several applications. That's just for displaying the things correctly inside the user view. It's not so much important. It's important in terms of layout. I will show maybe going back in my backend here what it means to have that accounting application. So to make it clear, right here, that's what I have here. Accounting, the word I'm underlining here. It's really the notion that I have. It's right there. That's the accounting one that we are talking about. And we see the users are part of the accounting group, but more specifically the accountant one. So here I am Antoine, and you see that here I have access to that group. And that is because here in accounting, I have access to that notion. And you say, but yeah, but here in accounting, you have consolidation user. You don't have accountant. Yes and no. It is true that we have here accountant name, and I can see my name right here, but that's because we wanted to make things a bit simpler. And you see that if I click on this little selection box, I see there are several access rights. And it's very, very important to understand that when we have a list like that, the first access right that is billing here is the group that gives you the less in terms of accounting, and then we have read-only, advanced billing, and the more you go down that list, the more you will get access rights. So that's why here, as an accountant, if I have consolidation user, it means that I have access to everything in terms of regular accounting, plus I can consolidate my accounts between different companies. So if I am a consolidation user, it also means that I'm also an accountant, a bookkeeper, advanced billing, read-only billing. So there's a notion of what we call technically in Odoo. You may have heard that name before, especially if you are a fan of the Odoo Insider sessions that we have together. There is a notion of inheritance. That notion is meaning that once I'm here, I inherit from the right that I have here in that same list. Clicking here, we can see that in the inheritance button, inherited tab. Here you see that once I'm an accountant, I have access to advanced billing and bookkeeper. So what does that mean? If I'm an accountant, I have access to bookkeeper and advanced billing. Very good. And if I click on, let's say, advanced billing, it has inherited group as well. So it means that advanced billing inherits billing. So again, advanced billing that we have here inherits billing. Very good. So there is a notion of dependency or inheritance here, which means that when you give access to something, you need to pay attention to what it inherits from, because maybe you're going to give a lot of access rights simply through inheritance. On our side, as the developer of the application, as the editor of the application, and on your side as a developer of application as well, if you are a partner, that is very useful. It means that you can segregate and you can create intermediate groups that have some access rights, but not everything, so that some people can have those some access rights, and you can split and grant even more to a select group of people, but every time managing smaller, let's say, lists of access rights grouped inside a group. So that's what it means to use that notion of inheritance here. You have seen that that same notion exists around the models, around the views in Odoo. That is something that I think you must be familiar with. I will skip for now the views. Maybe quick discussion about the menu. This one, sometimes people don't see exactly what it means. Menus are a strange case because by default, a menu in Odoo, and maybe I should explain that as well. A menu in Odoo is everything that can be clicked in terms of first level here on the splash screen. So that button here still is a menu, and that is the one that I have here under my cursor. This is a menu. This is a menu as well. This one, this one, this one. Everything here is a menu, and there is a structure. So there's a parent and then a child, or different children that themselves have children and grandchildren. So there's a structure in terms of menu. And you can see it here, that structure is represented right there, and you see it's separated with slashes. Like here we have accounting, configuration, banks, add a bank account. That is the menu that we'll have here. Accounting, so we said configuration, bank, add a bank account. The menu I'm hovering here is really the one that I have there. And when we have a menu in a list, it means that only this group can have access to that menu. Hear me well, this group has access to that menu, but if that's a group that I can inherit from, a group that inherits from it would also have access to the menu. Very important, it's not only that group, but that group and all the one that inherit from it. But if a menu is not linked to any group, then it's available to everyone. So it's very important to understand that sometimes menus, if I have a look at the menus, some menus will not be linked to any right in particular, but that means that they can be seen by everyone. So you won't see all the menus being listed here, but maybe it's sometimes important on your side that you have access to the other side of the same coin. Again, going into debug mode, if you are interested in knowing the opposite side, which is not which group has access to which menu, but that menu, which groups is it linked to. If you want to know that, you need to go here, you type menu items, and then you have access to all the menu items in Odoo. And you see that with my installation, with the different applications that I installed, it's not all the applications in Odoo, but quite a few. And I see that here I already have that many menu items, so close to 1,000. And if I want to see, okay, who has access to the CRM configuration settings, I can click there and we see that in fact only one person can see it in terms of visibility. It's the settings administration group. Do we have something else? Fleet, then it's a fleet officer. So you can see you have different menus, and some menus are linked to a group, some don't, some are linked to several groups. So that's how you can access and click on an item. Very, very important for you. The menu is a way to access an item. It doesn't mean that it's the only way to access the item. So the contact is a very good example, because in the contact you can access it from here, but maybe I can access the contact by, let's imagine that I don't have this information here, that contact, but I want to send an invoice, or I want to create something for that client. I select it here, I put whatever button, whatever line here. If I didn't have access to that contact, I can still access the contact information, because I would be able to first go here and click customer. It's not the same menu, but I still have access to it. So hiding one menu is not always sufficient. And also, even though I would have that other menu deactivated, I still can access to the same information by diving in the information and using the functional links that we have. So very important. Menus don't do everything. It's good to, it helps mostly the usability, but it's not going to be something that is secure. It is going to be really something that you use just to hide a few things and hide the action that is behind the menu, but it's not going to be the only thing that you want to hide. It's a first level, but sometimes you need to do more. Views, we have less and less views that are really linked to only one group, so I'm going to skip that from now. And maybe what I should do is talk a bit more about the groups and some places where we will see them before I dive into the access right and record rules, which are two other notions that are super, super, super important in terms of groups. So that notion of group, we said I'm connected with Antoine, and that connection that I have at the moment with my user, you see I have a lot of access rights. We name that a notion of group. Maybe another word or a synonym that you can use is a notion of role. So that's a role-based interface and software. That's because I am connected here with Antoine as an administrator, that I have access to this and that module or application. If you have someone in your company that is someone that should be managing the inventory, then you are going, and only the inventory, you are going to give him maybe some things in terms of I see, maybe I don't have it installed, maybe switch to the, no, it's here. Inventory, you are going to say it's an inventory user, and maybe he can purchase, and that's all, and you are going to give very, very limited access rights to this person. If I ever look at my own access rights inside our own Odoo environment, I have access to the CRM, a bit to the sales, but not to the accounting. I can see the project management because I work on the project management on a daily basis. But so you see the idea, it's on your side that you are going to select who is doing what and who is allowed to do what in terms of access rights. And if you want to know exactly what it means to be a sales user, own documents, all documents, or administrator, there's not that many other options than learn to use Odoo, or go into the definition of what it means to be a own document a salesperson. And usually most of the information you will find it into the access right and the record rules. I will go there in one very short moment. So we saw what we were linking the group to. We discussed about the inheritance, the different groups that we have linked to one group. We have a look at the users, the menus. Maybe before we have a look at access right and record rules, I would like to emphasize on a small topic that is related to just the group without more understanding, which is the notion that we find in Studio about the visibility. So when you select a studio, let's say, and I will toggle it right now, I will open Studio, and you have seen, I'm pretty sure, that some places you can decide to make them invisible conditionally. And usually you see here, I have one, it's pure fluke because I didn't pay attention to that. You see here we have at the bottom of the page, because I selected the delivery address, it's telling me you are going to only have access to that group if you are part of, to that field, if you are part of that group. So in order to have access to delivery address, you need to be a technical user and have the delivery address group. And that one, let's have a look at my user, but of course, I suppose that I have it, otherwise I wouldn't see the group. Let's go there. I could look like that, but it's a bit long, so I'm going to use Control F and say delivery. And I see here I have delivery address. It's checked, so that's why I can see it. So very good. Here it's a setting that I enforced, I put, when I started the database, that notion of delivery address. I added it inside my own user, and so that's why I can see that field. Some other user maybe won't see it simply because they don't have that. And here, if I add another group, it's not going to ask me to have access to it only if I have access to both groups. Only one is sufficient. Very important. The more you give groups here, the more people will have access to that field. So don't be too generous. Have a look at what we have here, and if you want to really limit to a very select group of people, then just use that group notion and don't put too many things here. I'm just checking a few other ones. I don't know if we have, yeah, this one is sales administrator for the next invoice because we are talking about a subscription. What about this one? No payment terms. You see, you don't have everything that is related to a group. Lots of fields, in fact, are for everyone, but a few are only related to a group. Technically speaking, I will dive a bit further into this, but you know it's not a course about the view edition. But I think it's important to see what it means to edit that kind of thing in True Studio. I will open my view here and I will go in the form view. Maybe this one. Form view is quite complicated on a sale order. Maybe I will have a look quickly at rather the list view on the orders. That's maybe a bit easier to grasp and see. I'm going to open the list view and go on the main view about this one. Do we have a groups notion here? Because usually what I was showing before is, yes, that one is a good one. What I was showing before in Studio, that extra item that you would see bottom left of the screen is technically speaking that notion of group attribute that you will find in a view. So because I have groups here with an S, don't forget it, and that we say a condition, that's where we are going to say if a group can or cannot have access to a field. And you see here we have company ID and we have two different conditions, and you see here it's referencing something that is a bit cryptic, that is base.group multi-company. That is the XML ID of the group. It's going to grant me access to the company ID field if I'm part of that group. So group multi-company here on company ID field, let's see if we can see that in Studio in the tree view. So let's open that again. Let's start Studio right there. Maybe I can make that bigger still. And all right, do I have access? I need to check the invisible fields because I think here we don't. Oh no, we see it. It's company here, and there you see it's access right multi-companies. So the XML ID that I had in the groups attribute on my XML view is the extra right multi-company here. And another way to see that, and you should know if you are part of our followers of the Odoo Insider show, you will have a look at that same notion by going to the settings, then groups, and if we find a group that is called multi-companies, all right, and we see multiple multi-something groups, like currencies, websites, but so multi-company is this one, and if I go there and I click on view metadata, I will see exactly the same XML ID as the one I had. Just let's close this and let's reopen the view that we have here. All right, it is really the notion that we have here, that base group multi-company. So really important. That's what we have here, the same concept of that XML ID. It's what we have here on the group, and that's what we will find directly there. We cannot base that on a name because name can be translated, there can be typos. The XML ID is something that is way more secure. Okay, so we saw that notion of group with the fields visibility, with the Studio change. We discussed a bit about the inheritance. We saw also how they could be, let's say, browsed. We go right there inside the groups. I think that even, let me remove the debug mode just to show that. Here settings, you see user and companies. If you are not in debug mode, you are not going to see the group menu items. So sometimes, just a quick reminder, you will need it just to browse the different groups. And we saw a bit of notion about the inheritance. Also, when you say, okay, I like the group that we have here, but I would like to create my own group, that is possible. You have the new button here, you can create a new group, and maybe that's a group that you just want to use because you want a specific group to hide other fields, and it's going to be a technical one and no specific things in terms of menu or inheritance. It's just something in which you would like some users that have access to a field. That is something that you can do. You can create new groups, and generally speaking, what we are going to cover today is our groups, access rights, and record rules, and you can create all of them. You can create new groups that have access right and record rules. That will work. You just need to know what you are doing, of course. Very important as well in terms of groups. If you create a new one, usually it's good that you document it somewhere, because sometimes we see people creating new groups and not paying too much attention. It's also important that if you want to use it in order to hide some fields, you will have to generate an XML ID so that you can reference it in the view. So that's also important to consider. Okay. Technically speaking, we talk about groups here, and you didn't see me creating groups. They came because I installed an application. So the field service here, administrator group, for example, it came from a specific application, but because I installed field service, it comes directly with a default setting, and the default setting is what are the different roles inside the field service application. And that, if you want to know more and see how it is done, you can have access to this, and you click on View Metadata, and you will see the module is the left-hand side of the XML ID. You will see the module it comes from. So the application it comes from is Industry FSM. We have the same if I go in the timesheet and I want to see timesheet administrator. Where does it come from, this one? It's coming from HR timesheet. So I'm going to copy that information, and I'm going to select, and I will go to GitHub and browse my favorite project. I go here in the add-ons. I'm going to look for directly in the code search HR timesheet Notion. Just curious about this, but that is going maybe to give me too many results. So I'm going to look for that here, because in fact I'm looking for the name of a module, so I don't need to go in the code. I just need the module name. And you see here, that's where we have the HR timesheet. And very important in terms of access rights, what I'm explaining today, most of the things, like if maybe 99% of what I'm explaining, will be found in the security folder. And talking about the notion of group, I'm going to check that here. We were talking about the group whose name was, let me check again this, because I closed this, it was HR timesheet, and then we have group timesheet manager. And that, if I'm looking for this, I see that in the file, the XML file that we have inside the security place of the HR timesheet, module, we are going to create that record. And that record has an ID that is group timesheet manager, part of the HR timesheet module. And we say the model is a REST group, so we create a new group, we name it administrator, and then we say the implied IDs are the groups it inherits from, and the user by default, we put the root user, that is Odoo bot, and the admin user there. So that is very important. We receive that group, the group that we have here, because I installed an application that is HR timesheet, and that inside it contains a file that is referenced by Odoo. So we put that all in the in Odoo, simply because I installed the module, so that you can start with basic access rights. So very important to see. If you want to compare your access rights with the default one, like you made a change, and you change the name, you change a few menu or access rights, and you want to compare, that's where you will find the information in the security folder of the module. You will see, okay, what is it in terms of pure Lambda Odoo installation when I am using a new, that new things I want to change the groups. That's where you are going to find the information that you need. Okay, that's the group. That's how you are going to locate them in the code. You can use the left-hand side of the XML ID to find it. Of course, this one, if I select just the name here, maybe it will be referenced somewhere else. And that's also important. I'm going to do this. I don't know if this one in particular is reused, but I'm just curious about, yes. Okay, is that one inside security? No. Timesheet security, okay. I'm going to look for any other group. Yeah, that's a good one. So I have this group that was generated or created because of the HR timesheet application. And here you see we reference it again in another security folder inside HR timesheet attendance. So sometimes we create a group in one application, and some applications that depend on it are going to reference it again. We don't want to create millions of groups. We want to create a few groups that make sense and that are usually around 2 to 3 levels. Exception made is, well, with the accounting, which we have many more groups, but usually it's more like a regular user manager or officer manager, and you have those 3 layers. And we want to keep that simple, so that's why very often you will see places where we are going to reference other groups. And here, for example, in this one, we reference that group for this one is a rule. It's not really an extension, but we are going to reference that group. I wanted to see if there was a place where we would explain a bit more in terms of inheritance. Maybe this one not so much, but I'm pretty sure that if I go, maybe another good example would be the internal user group. There, I think you reference it a lot, like this one. That I'm pretty sure I will have maybe too many different mentions of it in the XML. Okay, then it's a group. Okay, this one. Yes, once you install the mail application, what it means here is that when you install the mail application, we are going to add inside the res group, the res group that is the user, we are going to add the notion of a mail template editor, so that every user, if you don't install the mail application, you don't have it, but if you install the mail application, then an internal user will have something that is related to the mailing. Yes, mail template editor. So that line here has been added from the mail module. And as you can see, it comes after the module that contains the notion of internal user, which is very, very basic, very, very low inside Odoo. It's installed very quickly. Like when you install Odoo, the base module is anyway there. So we create a notion of internal user, and this one you are going to add because you install the mail module quite quickly as well. We are going to say if you install the mail module, it means that base module is there as well. Then let's upgrade the access rights of what is a base user and so an internal user. So that's why you have that line that is added here. So what I want to show you here is first where it's located in terms of security place, security folder inside the different modules, but also that things are very, very flexible and you can adapt the groups, what they inherit from, how to inherit other groups, how to add access rights. So that's how Odoo does it. You go inside the files and you explain, okay, that group that already exists in Odoo, I would like to supplement it with something extra. When you are going to develop your own modules, that's how you would do if you want to hook your changes to a group that already exists. There's also the possibility to create other groups. Like we said, you can do it in the interface. You can also do it the same way inside the XML file that was just showing before. But if you want to say, okay, but let's change the access right of a group, that's how you would do it. That's a possibility. Okay, so I think that we covered what was needed for the notion of group. Maybe now we are going to dive into something that is a bit more complicated, but small first layer, which is the access right. It is the notions to which you have access because you have a group. A group in itself, if we stop the explanation here, if we stop the video today, like right now, you got the information about which menus you have access with the group. So because I'm a user, Antoine here, and then I have, we go to the accountant and we say, okay, you inherit those groups, very good, you have access to these menus. Okay, that's fine, I can click the menu. But then as soon as I click the menu, if we stop it there, I will get an error. Because I'm getting the access to a menu, but maybe what will open behind the menu, like here, the banks, maybe Odoo is going to tell me, okay, you have a menu that gives you access to the banks, but in terms of access rights, although you have a menu that is pointing to banks, you cannot have access to it because we didn't give you the proper access right. And the access right, I think, is the most, well, the first level, I cannot say it's the most easier thing to understand in Odoo, but I'm pretty sure that you've seen these kind of access notions, maybe on your computer, if you're using Windows or Linux, you know that those kind of things that we see on the right side, read, write, create, delete. Sometimes write is more like update access, so that you say create, read, update, delete, CRUD. It's an acronym that we use a lot for the different rules that you will have. And it will tell you what you can do per model. So here, I will read that aloud with you. If I have the account inside Odoo, the technical name is account.account, but it's linked to a model that is the account. And let's show what it is, an account. An account in Odoo, like the one that we were having a look at, it's really in the accounting configuration chart of accounts. So that's really the account that we are talking about. If I want to see the action, remember, account, that is what we have here. We see just account over there, but if I dive into this, I will see account. So that's what matters, it's the model. This one is just a name. I could add just small 2 here. It won't change anything. It's just a name for reference. So usually in the name, put something that makes sense. Here, it's just most of the time you see it's a mix of model name. Sometimes it's just kind of model name but with underscore. So there's no real impact on the name, but what really matters is the model. So because I am an accountant, I have access to the model account and I can do anything with it. Read, write, create, delete. Okay, I can read accounts. We can see that here. I could read them, so I can see them on my screen. If I want to change this and put just a number 2 behind, okay, I could change that as well. So indeed I can write. I can create a new one. As you can see, I can have access to the new menu. By the way, you don't have access to the new button if you don't have the access right. I can say, okay, I will put, hopefully it doesn't exist, and I will say this, I don't know, yes, and then it's telling me the code is incorrect because I have here this notion. Very important. It's not because I have the access right, which what we just saw now. It's not because I have the access right that I can do whatever I want. There are still other controls inside Odoo telling me, hey, there are a few things that you need to take care of, like a code cannot have, you see that extra squared thing. It cannot be more than X numbers. You have other rules around the business object that are not strictly linked to that CRUD access right. But let's go back to that notion. You see that here, because I'm an accountant, I have access to 53 new different access rights. Very good, but it's a bit odd here that I need to be an accountant to have access to the account, because we saw that accountant here was the most important group inside the accounting application. But is it that some other people can have access to also the notion of account through other groups, because maybe some other people need it? And the answer is yes, but let's discover how. So we can go back maybe from here to my user. Let's select this one, and we saw that we have accounting consolidation. But let's have a look at someone that is a billing person, so smallest group inside the accounting. Does he have access to that as well? Let's go back here, group, and we say billing. This is the one that we were talking about, and the access rights. Okay, he has access to account as well, but then it's not exactly the same. I only have access in read mode. So sometimes you are going to find that we have the same model, but the definition in different groups is different. And even sometimes you are going to find the same kind of line where you have a model and you have exactly the same definition there. But that is because Odoo needs to be flexible, and sometimes we need to be sure that even if we don't install another application, you have the sufficient access rights. You will see what I mean with what I'm just explaining here. I'm going to look for, thanks to my user that has a lot of access rights, I'm going to have a look at a few models for which we have exactly the same access right, and we are going to find out why we have such a odd thing in a way, because we repeat information inside Odoo. I'm going there, and something I didn't mention is that with the smart buttons that you have in Odoo, on your user, you can see the 3 most important objects that we are talking about today: the groups, the access right, and the record rules. And really they go in that order in terms of complexity. Groups is easy to understand, it's a role. Access rights are granted by the groups as well as record rules. But record rules, we'll see there's a bit of technicity around the domain notion that is a bit complicated. But let's go in the access right. And because I have access to 95 different groups, I have access to almost 2,000 different access rights, which is a lot. But let's have a look at, let's group it per model. So you see here we have lots of models that are, for which I have access now. And if I see bill of materials, I see I have 7 different access rights. And you see there's only one that is giving me access to everything, but otherwise I have this. All those ones give me access in read mode. And you can tell me, yeah, but Antoine, it's a repetition. Why do we have so many different accesses? That's because I decided on my side that I would be inheriting from all the groups, but maybe someone is just a billing person and he doesn't have access to the other to the other groups. And so if someone is just a billing person, but he needs to have access to the bombs, not to change them, but just to read them, because sometimes technically we need access to that information, then I need to be able to grant him that access. So he needs to have read access here. Here it turns out that I'm an admin, so I have many groups, so that's why I have access to so much repetition, but some people only have access to this one. So as Odoo is flexible, and as you want some people to only use one application, and also you want some databases to have only one application installed, we need anyway to give you the let's say the smallest access rights to make this work, and that is part of it. The fact that it repeats, it's not super important. And of course, I cannot remove this one because maybe for my user, it's not going to have an impact, but for someone that is just accounting read-only, you are maybe removing the only access he has to the BOM notion, so the bill of material. So that's why you will find here lots of repetition. But for Odoo, what matters is that it's only going to be additive. So because I have access here to the analytic account, and the first line is already giving me full access rights, that's all I need. If this one is contradicting this one because it gives me less access, for Odoo it doesn't mind. It doesn't matter. I already have access to everything on the first line, so I will have access to everything. The way the access rights work is through, we call that an OR operand. So I have access to the analytic accounts here. If this one is giving me access to it, or this one, or this one, or this one, or this one. And as it's or, every time it adds up the amount of possibilities for me to get access to the model. So very important, it's additive. So the more you have here, the higher the chances that you are going to have access to the object that is behind. Okay, that's for the access right notion. Those access rights, as I was mentioning, they are also located somewhere in the code of Odoo. You are going to see it here. We can go back maybe to the, you remember the HR timesheet application that we had? So I can base this on the same HR timesheet, very good. Again, security. And usually they are located in IR model access. If I go there and I have a look at a few, you are going to recognize a few things, but that line that I have here, every line I see I have 8, well, minus the header, so 7 lines. Every line here is one line that we have over there. Okay, and you can see that the read, write, create, and delete access are the last columns that we have, and it's perm read, perm write, perm create, perm unlink, and it's 1 for checking, 0 for unchecking. So that's why if I have a look, and I can select this one, maybe we'll find one that has that name. If I select this name, we are going to see what it means. Let's go there. I think that I have it installed, so okay, and I see it's a write on analytic account. That's the line. I have read and write access. So let's go back here. I should have read and write. Yes, read and write. And it's on that group, that's the XML ID of the group, and that's the XML ID of the model. So it's the timesheet user group on the analytic account model, and that means that it's the timesheet user group. That's what you need here, and the model is there. So it's a bit technical, that part, but it's important to see and to understand that we preload that as the rest, and that it's going to be sent to Odoo. So if you create your own application, that's the kind of thing that you need to do. Very important, by the way. If you create it yourself manually through Python code or through some help or following the tutorial that we give, that's really the place where you can get some inspiration on how to do things properly. Dividing the groups in smaller parts, using inheritance, using the same kind of codifications to create your groups and access rights. Maybe one addition that I should mention is the fact that when you create new models with Studio, because Studio is allowing you to do that. So how can we have something that works? Let's discover that together. I'm going to create a new application here and say, that's the example that we have in the project leader onboarding. It's one of the courses that we have in order to have people learning how to use Studio. We create something that is an animal shelter application, and that is there. And I'm going to say I need a new notion that is an animal. Let's imagine that it's a new concept that we don't have in Odoo. In fact, it's not existing. I'm going to say new model. I'll click on next. There I will skip it because it's not the point today to select exactly what is an animal, but I will click on create new app so that Odoo is generating that app, that icon from the main screen, and there I can dive directly into the model creation. But the model is already existing here. If I click on close, at the moment an animal is just here, and I will say, let's say that's our guy. I don't know what is the regular name of a dog for this. Where is my application now? I don't even know what I use in terms of icon. Here it is. Okay, and I have my dog that is there. And if I want to have a look at the name of the model, I can reuse the edit action, and you see the object is X animal. It's underscore X underscore. That means that it has been created through Studio. But it's a bit odd, right? Because if I have access to the dog here and to the notion of animal, it means that I need to have some access rights for that. So we can have a look at that notion and see in which group we are going to have access to this. Or maybe you can even do the opposite. Go on a model and see which are the different groups that grant me access to this model. So I'm going to go another place in again in debug mode, in the database structure, and I'm going to have a look at what is an animal in my database. And you see here, that's again the revert view of what we saw before. It is, I'm on an object and I would like to discover the access right that I have on it. And you see we have access right and record rules here. It's the opposite view of this. If I were going on the analytic account, I think I can access it from here, yes. Then I can click on access right and I can see all the different places that I have access to the analytic account from there. On the animal, let's have a look. That's what I have. So when we create a new object with Studio, what we get automatically are two different access rights. One for a user, internal user, and we give that access. It's the default one, but you can change it. It's read, write, and create access. And then for the administrator, we need to have the deletion access as well. So very important. Studio manages that for you, but always use the same setting. So if you create your own models with Studio, pay attention to this and check if that's what you want. In addition to that, Odoo is not going to create any record rule, but I'm going to come back with the record rule notion just after. All right. So that is for that notion of groups. We saw how to see it in GitHub, where it's located, what the Studio does about it. If you don't want to use Studio, but you are going to code yourself, again, repetition here, but don't forget that you need to create those records inside the security folder, otherwise it's not going to work. Odoo is going to give you straight away an error. And the kind of error that you will get, we can emulate that, by the way. I can come back and say, okay, I would like to go back to my X animal place on the model. Okay, just animal, I think. Maybe I need to refresh, or no, I'm in the wrong place here. Let's go there and let's change my animal and remove the read access. It's a bit weird to have that where I don't have a read but a write access. Not something that should be happening. But if I go there, it's going to give me this message. There are no groups that allow me to have access to this information at the moment. So I need to at least give that, and that would be sufficient. Because I think I'm both. I'm both internal user and administrator, so that's okay. Odoo is going to tell you which group grants access to it. So let's imagine that I need to find maybe an example where I don't have the delete access, and if I try to delete something, Odoo is going to tell me you cannot, but that group can, so that you can debug and find which group can give you specific access rights. So it's something that has been, it's not super new, but I think it reached Odoo in version 15 or 16, where we are going to guide a bit the administrator towards understanding which group is allowing you to have a specific access. So that as a user, if you have a message, you can go to your admin of the database and tell, okay, I need that group in particular because that's what is granting me access to something I need. And as an admin, when you debug, you see which group is causing troubles in terms of access rights. Okay, enough of theory for the group side with the model. Then we are going to dive into the most complicated part about the groups. Bear with me, even though I'm pretty sure that lots of you are already, let's say, you already have some knowledge about that. I'm going to talk about the record rules, which is maybe the part that is confusing a bit more people when we talk about access rights. Let's have a look at something in particular. If I go in the access rights, there's something that is maybe strange. If I were to stop the configuration of Odoo here, we could say the following. Okay, it's great. You need access to the accounts, or you need access, maybe I have access to the notion of REST partner, and REST partner, if you remember well, that's the contact. you need access to the contacts, but maybe you need access to a subset of contacts, not all of them. Maybe I don't want you to have access to the contacts of another company. So if I were to just stop my explanation here, it means you have read access. Read access without further conditions means you have a read access for everything. And we want to limit that. So while we have the groups granting you access through the access rights, sometimes we want to give access through access rights. So what we are having a look at right now, access rights, but limit it with extra rules. And that's why the rules exist. If I go here and let's select, I don't know which one I could use, but no, I have an idea. I'm going to base that on CRM. It's the same as the older video from 5 years ago. I'm going to use the own documents only. And if I go there, I see here, I have some access rights as a sales own document only person, and then I have record rules. And you see here we have lots of information, and especially if you have a look at the name or the model, it doesn't change. That right side part doesn't change, but you have the most important part is the domain. The domain means you have access to that model if you have this domain, the record that you are trying to find matches this domain. And that notion of matching is very important. It means that here, if I am to read it or translate it in human terms, this one would mean here you have this. I'm going to make that bigger because usually here the name explains a bit what is inside the domain. It's saying personal subscription analysis. So I would expect if I just keep the eye on the first column, it would mean having personal subscription access in terms of reporting. So it means that on that model, let's have a look, it's subscription analysis. It's a specific model that we have in the subscription application. That's a reporting object. But we say you can have access to this once you are part of that group, but you can only have access to this in two different cases. And that's what that pipe is for. It's saying or. Either you are the user referenced in the user ID field of the subscription, and user ID field on a subscription, what is it? Then we need to use the debug mode to find that out. But let's select a subscription. That's, I think, in the other info. That's the field that we have here. You see field user underscore ID. So that's the field that we are talking about. So I'm saying here you have access to a subscription analysis. If among the analysis that you want to perform, you are the user of the subscriptions. But other possibility, nobody is the user. So the user ID field is empty. So that would correspond to this. You have access to it because in fact it's nobody's property. So that's how you have to interpret the access right. That kind of access right, you will find it a lot of different places here. I think we have it. Yeah, it's the same for the orders, for the opportunities. So it means an opportunity in Odoo, if you are part of that group, you can only access the ones for which you are the user, so the salesperson, or the ones that are not yet assigned to someone. That's how you can read that one. And then it's a bit different here on the sale order line. You need to be the salesman ID. It's just a different name of the field. Otherwise, this one is the same. And then you have a few more complex ones where here, if I'm to read it, I need to scratch my head and think like, okay, so we have that notion that is the wizard for sending invoices. That's a bit more complicated because we need to be sure that the type of move in terms of accounting is a out invoice, which is an invoice going out, or it's a refund also for a client. And that one of those two conditions are respected. So sometimes as a consultant, it means in order to not debug, but to understand technically exactly what it is, you have a first explanation that is just the name, and then you have the technical explanation, which is the best one because it suffers no, let's say, no discussion. That's the way it is. That's the way it is. And you need to be able to interpret that if you want to go deeper in terms of access rights understanding. You need to go and see what is that record rule. And sometimes this one is a bit harder to understand, but I think that you can do. I'm doing it in that direction. Not sure it works, but we are going to check that together. You see here, I'm saying that this domain, I copy pasted it. I'm going to try to reuse it. Yes, it's indeed copy pasted. I'm going to try to reuse it right there. So it was on the activities, but it's the same here on the analysis or on the leads. So I'm going, do we have some leads here? CRM, Yeah, I have an opportunity here, but is this one mine? Sales team, do we have a salesperson? Yeah, it's me. Okay, let's see. I'm going to create a new filter. You see my pipeline. I'm going to create something here, and I'm going to create a new field and say, and you see here you have a code editor. Because I'm in debug, if I remove the debug, I won't have that. But I'm going to copy paste that information that I had, and I'm going to see if Odoo can interpret it directly. Yes, you see, because I copy pasted this, it's going to tell me what it means in terms of field. It's telling me salesperson needs to be user.id, current user, or salesperson needs to be set to nothing. And yeah, it's going to tell me the domain is invalid. That's what I was afraid of, because it's not exactly the same syntax. So that's why Odoo is going to bother me. But I think that this one I could use salesperson is not set. Maybe this one is better. No, I think user ID here doesn't accept it that way. Maybe that example is not super great. Is it this one that is not happy with? Yeah, in fact, that's the first part. Here it has troubles maybe reusing a notion that would be dynamic, but you get the idea. That's in terms of formatting, that's how you would maybe reuse that information, just to have the right syntax, and then say here it's not user ID equals false but user.id. And user here, you see it's not between quotes, so the left hand side is always the field that we are looking for. That is the operand. That's how we are going to check things. If it's a date or an amount, it can be bigger or smaller. And that is, you see it's not between quotes, so it's a dynamic variable, and the user is the person I'm connected with. I'm not going to cover all the different cases that you have there, but it's very important to realize that because of these rules, you have access or not to some information, and we can play around with that. And maybe the best example that I can give here is connecting with another user, because that's how usually we ask people to debug or to check if things are going well in terms of access right. I'm going to play a bit with my other extra user and see how things evolve now that we have that understanding of the rules of the access right of the groups. So I'm going to connect with one of the users that we have here. I have that Henry guy. I'm not sure about the password, but in any case, maybe I'm going to reuse it. I'm creating a new one. It was this address, so I'm going to sign in. Okay, I'm not sure about this one. Is that it? Yeah, cool. So I'm connected here, and I'm going to switch. You see this one white, white window. That one is black with my H guy Henry. Here I'm with Antoine in debug. I'm going to remove a few access rights of Henry because I think he has too much. I'm going to remove as much as I can. We'll see that sometimes Odoo is going to guide me and tell me, yeah, you're trying to remove some access right, but you can't, in fact, because you don't realize, but you have inheritance that is from one group that is giving you access to another group that you thought that you removed. So that's important to understand as well. I'm saving this one. Yeah, you saw this one came back. I'm going to remove it so that you can see it. And even if I save, you don't see it. Maybe I'm using Alt S, like just to save here with the shortcut. Here, I want to save it that way, but when I save, I'm adding registration desk. In fact, that's simply because I think registration desk is given by another group. And if I go here, removing it, it's telling me, hey, yes, but sales user own documents only will give you that access right. So that's the notion of inheritance. We show you a mismatch potentially here if you try to remove something that you cannot really unless you remove the other access right. So maybe I can remove it, but then I need to remove sales, and then I'm fine, and I don't have that mismatch. But as soon as I give it access, then it's going to grant me the events registration desk. All right, let's switch back and see what it means. I had lots of access, lots of applications. Let's refresh. Boom. Then I have access to less application. It makes sense. I remove that access right. And then you can see that I still have access to some other things. Here, if I go in my pipeline, I can remove that, and I don't have the same view. I have access to the same objects as I had before, but if I go in the CRM here as Antoine, I see two different leads, and I see only one here. And that's because this one, it matches the filter. That's because it's assigned to this person. If I remove it, if I put it to another salesperson, and we see here the extra information, yes, all right, you have this, then I don't see it anymore, simply because it's not matching the filter again. So that is what you have. You can play with that, hide, show things, that's completely okay, and that will match the information. But maybe you want to do something a bit different. I'm going to play around with the rules just to show you. I'm not saying it's easy, but just to show you how things operate. We have a first group here that is the lowest access right with the own documents only. We have another one here. We have, and that's, by the way, how we define that registration desk is part of that own documents only. In terms of inheritance, I'm going to have a look at the other groups. And it was in CRM or sales? I don't remember. No, it was sales, right? Okay, now we have all documents. All documents is telling me it's the next group in line in the sales. So you have own documents, then all documents, and then you have manager. And here in terms of record rules, it's going to use a trick. You see lots of domains are 1 equal 1. And that is because it's a bit weird, but we want sometimes to bypass the previous rule. So what I explained with the access rights before, when we were talking about that notion of access right, we said if you have several records, it's going to be additive. If I have several lines on the same model, it's going to augment, to raise the chances for me to have access to that model. In terms of record rules, you have the same notion, kind of, but as the first one was very restrictive, I need to make it possible for someone that is part of that group, all documents, to ignore the previous rule or to have another rule that grants me access to something. And here, for example, if I'm saying I need to have access to all the leads, there's a simple rule that I can use is 1 equal 1, because that rule is always true. So it means that Odoo is going to have a look at the leads and say, okay, you are part of the all documents. Should you have access to that lead or that lead? And it's going to say, let's have a look at the rules. I have one rule that is preventing me to have access to it because I'm not a salesperson. Fine, so you cannot. But I have another rule that is always true. So it's always granting me access. So very important. That one is kind of a specific, I don't know if I can call it a passkey, but it's kind of a shortcut to allow me to have access because it will always be true, that domain. 1 always equals 1, so that's okay. And if I am adding the user in that group now, let's go back to my user, Henry, and let's say you are not an own document, but you are all documents, and I refresh this. I remove my pipeline, then I see the opportunities because of that access right, and specifically the rule that is around the lead. It is giving me access. I can maybe use that other group here and play around with it. If I go here and I'm saying, okay, own documents, not own documents, sorry, all documents, I need to go back. All documents, I want to have access to this one, and I'm going to say leads no. I don't know if that rule will give me an error. Yeah, I cannot do that. If I were to remove this one with read, I can just do that so that you see the difference. Here, it will hide again the information simply because I cannot read it anymore. So in terms of read, only the first one will be interpreted and evaluated at false because I'm not a salesperson, while this one is not active anymore for the read side. If I put back the read, then I will find it again here. Now, specific case, I'm going to dive there or to the other one, and here I'm going now to remove the read access. So I already have access to it, but I'm removing the read access in the meantime. So I'm going to refresh my screen, and doing so is going to tell me this. And you see, it's going to tell me which user, ID 6, this is the ID of that guy. It's telling me, hey, in terms of CRM lead, you don't have access. If you want, you have to ask your admin to get the access, because at the moment you cannot. And so that's how Odoo is going to operate until you don't have the access rights. But if I go there, again, I can find it back after having changed the access right. Those kind of things can be changed. So let's imagine I want to change own documents so that it's not only me, but my team. We can make a small change there. I'm going to play around with that and see how we can change it together. You can change it the following way directly into the interface, like I'm going to do right now, but the best is always to document your changes as usual. I will never emphasize enough that part of the changes that we make. And you can also have it not in the interface, but in an XML file like we do. Again, take some inspiration from what we do inside Odoo, and you will see how to do it on your side. I'm going to say this time I would like to change another user. We are a team, we have a sales team, so let's use the sales team to make that work. So I'm going to change that. I'm going to say, in fact, you can have access if I'm going to use the same notion, team ID is false. So if there's no team, it's a free for all. Everyone can have a look at that. And team ID, I know it's the field because I can go and get some help from Odoo here. I think it's extra information. We have team something. Yeah, it's here. You see team underscore ID. Very good. So that's the right thing. And Odoo is already giving me an error because I left the field without saving and with an incorrect value. And then I'm going to say, okay, but here the team ID, I need to have, and maybe it's user IDs, I need to be sure that my user ID belongs to the users of the team. So I need to go in the team, find out if there's a user IDs list of users, and I want to be sure that my user is inside. And then it's not an equal sign, it's an in, because we need to have the presence of my user in a list. So that's how we can do it. I'm going to save. It's going to give me an error because here it's telling me, yeah, you don't have users IDs in 2. I need to change that as well and put it in a table. I think that's what matters. Not sure. Let's try. No, I think it's user IDs.IDs. Okay. I'm not even sure that this one exists. I'm going to have a look at that just after. I'm not even sure that this one works. I'm going to have a look at that by going to the team and be sure of the user ID notion. Here you can see I don't have access to the small arrow on the right. That's simply because I have a widget here of selection, but I can get the same information by going to the sales team over there, sales team here, and then we have in the members. That is bothering me because I can see the add column, but I don't see, even in debug mode, I don't see exactly the name of that one-to-many. So I will maybe require to have a look at the fields and see if we have a field that would be one-to-many or a many-to-many that will reference a user. So that's something that I will use here, maybe the type of field over there, many-to-many. I have members IDs and I see salesperson. That's maybe the one I need. I'm going to click there. And it's linked to REST users. So that's what I need. It's member IDs. So let's reuse that. It's not user IDs, but member IDs. Was it member IDs or members ID? No, member IDs. Okay. And now I'm back to that thing like saying team ID, okay, member IDs. I don't know if I need to use the IDs here, that kind of thing. You need sometimes inspiration. You have that notion. You see here we have move IDs with a user, but that is only it's just a it's just a many-to-one and not a one-to-many or a many-to-many. So that's a bit harder. If you see that you struggle here or you're not sure about that, you will find a few other places in Odoo and always use. It's a really key element of the philosophy here. It's have a look at what we do in some other places. I'm going to have a look at the record rules that we have there. And what I can do is look in terms of domains, if there are a few places where we mention explicitly the notion of IDs. And yes, something like this, like .IDs. Maybe I will find that in the domain. Yes. And you see here we have a few like group IDs and then it's user group ID IDs. Okay. Do we have another one that would match what we need here? Child of, all right. Okay, partner ID IDs. I'm going to use that notion here. I don't know if I need to have IDs over there. And then I think it's up. I'm never quite sure, yeah, about the syntax, and you see here it seems to accept it. So we are going to have a look. It's not because it's accepting it here that it's going to work, especially since it's giving me that. But yeah, that's just an error on my side. I'm going to refresh this one, and here it's working again. So you see, if I go back with my user, as it's part of the same team, I'm not a salesperson mentioned, but it's still working. Just a matter of team. So here this one is linked to salesperson here. So that's okay. Let's try to see if it's really working by removing or changing the team. let's go there, and if it's not working, then it means that my filter is incorrect, my filter/domain. So I'm going there and I'm saying, okay, let's change the sales team and let's move it to kiosk sales team or the website. And let's see if I'm part of that team again. Here, if I remove that, yes, it seems like I still have access to it. So maybe something else is giving me access to it, because there it's website. So there could be that I'm in several teams. So you need to check the data model and the information that you have behind. So in the sales team website, I don't have any members, so that is a bit weird. I need to see why I have access to this one. Apparently the rule is not correct. What we can do is see when we have that, we like, okay, is it an error of the rule? What I can do is just remove that first part, so that I'm only going to have access to, yes, I know. I'm going to change that back, because in fact I forgot, but I think that I'm still part of the other group. I think it's simply that. Going back to my user, Henry, over there, yes, it's all document. I need to put him back to own document, so that, yes, now I see I'm not part of any team, so I'm not seeing anything. So main error here is that my user had access to all documents, which, if you remember well, is giving that one-to-one, so giving me access to all the leads is not what I want. So I have to reduce the access right here and go back to my definition and check now if I can add that one into a team that my user is part of. So I need to be sure first that inside the sales team, like this one, I have Henry that is part of this team. Good. So now he's part of the team. I hope that I will find some lead here. Yes, that's okay. I can find it because I'm part of the sales team. So that's how it's going to work. And this example, we saw it here with a very, very basic change in terms of domain. And you see how to reflect. If you are struggling, you have a look at the other rules. Just in terms of syntax, you can use a domain widget that we have inside Odoo to guide you through understanding this. The most difficult part is writing it properly and be sure that the definition is really what you need. So use the filters in Odoo, use a bit of technical help, double check that with your a test account like I'm doing, just to be sure that you have the right access. So that needs to be tested. When you create an access right like this one, it needs to be tested really, really well. And also tested when you have an upgrade, because sometimes basic definition changes. So that one is, I think, maybe the most difficult one to understand for people. If you want to cover that in depth, one of the things that you can do as well is go into technical, and you can see all the different record rules inside Odoo. And you will find many. There are almost 600 on my database. And yeah, here there's always a different domain. The most important part is the domain. You will see, and that's maybe something that is super, super important, that in the domain you have lots of things that are blue colored, and with company ID. And that I need to explain two things about those ones, because those are maybe one of the most important rules inside Odoo, is that whatever you give in terms of access rights, and we saw it for Henry that we had here, we wanted to segregate and give him only his own lead or the leads of his team. But there's a default setting that we have on almost all the different models, at least the important ones, is that by default we don't want people to have access to records that are not part of their company. That means that here, if I'm in the Belgian company and not in the US, I need to have access only to the ones that are, to the records that are referenced, whatever the model, to my company. And that's why these rules, or this set of rules, makes me not see the sale orders from different companies. So let's have a look at it here. So I can use a specific group by and go on the company over there. No, I'm using a filter here. Let's use a group by. Let's use the custom company group by. I see only Belgium. Very good. Maybe I don't have for the US company, because I don't know how much I used the other company here. Do I have? Let's see. Let's group by again. Same notion. If it doesn't work here, no, I only have Belgian ones. I don't know if I created things on another company here. Journals, I guess that Odoo comes with different journals. Yes, I have too many for just one company, so I guess that one would be a good match. Let's go per company. Yes, so here I see US and Belgium. And the rules that we have here that are making this work is I will type journal in the model. And we see that here, in fact, let me make that bigger. That's the one that we have. It's telling me you can have access to the journals if the company of the journal is the parent of any of your company IDs. And we are going to see what is company IDs field, or I can tell you already, it's the list of IDs that you have here. It's the list of companies that you have here. Very important, you see I only have one selected here, two selected here, so it's really per tab. And here, as I've both selected, it's going to show me information about both journals. So that's why this rule is giving me access to this one. You see you have some different ones with sometimes parent of, you have child of, so there are small differences between one or the other. You have a few others that are using just company underscore ID on the right hand side and not IDs, because sometimes you only want to select the first company, well, the most important one you are on at the moment. And you see that here it's the first one that is highlighted in purple, so you have a difference between, it's a bit weird, but you have a difference in terms of companies here. And that list that you can select, it's also part of the discussions about the access right. And that you can select it here by going into your user definition, because of course Odoo is great in terms of multi-company environment, and what allows you to be part of one or several companies is here allowed companies. And if I go there, you see it's company underscore IDs, but that company underscore IDs is not exactly the same as what we have here. The values that you have are the same, but the selectable values are the same, but not the values. Because if I go there and I uncheck company, US company, you see here, I have only this one selected, and here I have two. So you have three different notions. You have the company ID here without an S, and it's the default company. That can be useful sometimes. You have here company underscore IDs, which is the amount of companies, well, the maximum, the biggest list that I can select companies from. And then you have the ones that I select here in the widget. That is part of version 15, something like this, the fact that we separate this notion from this one. But very important in terms of record rules. When you have only company IDs like this one is the list that you have here. But I wonder if we have a place where we have user.company IDs in the domain. Do we have that? Yes, there are a few places. Here, apparently it's all in the consolidation or in the selection of companies themselves, where here is going to select not the ones that we have here, that is slightly different, but the one that we have there. So user.company IDs is the list that we have here, while just company IDs is the list that we have here, knowing that this list depends on this one. A bit strange, but if you repeat that slowly or if you have a look at the videos, you will see what I mean, or you can make a few tests on your side. Okay, so that is about the rules related to the companies, and we have many, because we saw that if I go in company IDs, we have many rules like those ones, and they are all blue. They are blue for one reason, and just a quick reminder, if you want to know why things are blue, sometimes you have a notion of decoration, and that's why you see here decoration info is going to tell us not groups. So it means that those rules, they are not linked to groups, and in fact you can see that here groups is empty. That means that they are going to apply to all the groups all the time. Very important, those are global rules. So you don't need to be part of a group to have that rule impacting you. So those are very important. And maybe one of the last things that we are going to cover today is that notion of global rules, or important they are. Because when we want to have access to a notion of lead or whatever, we need to know that the global rules have more importance than the other rules. And we are going to have a quick summary about that. But let's have a look at the notion of CRM lead again and see the rules that we have around it. So on my CRM lead, I see I have those three rules, and we played with it today. We have this one, and this one is part of the group, sales user all documents. Very good. Let's make that smaller here so that we have everything. Yeah, good. This one, that's for me because I'm with the admin, so I will have access to all the leads, but we know now that that guy, Henry, is only part of the first group. But although, if you remember what I just said 2 minutes ago, this group is also applied to Henry, because in fact, On his side, he is part of that sale user own documents, but not all documents. And the group here, we said it's applying to everyone, whatever the group. So both rules are going to be evaluated at the same time, but they are going to be evaluated in a specific way. Global rules need always to be true, while local rules, like this one, it's a local one, it's belonging to a group, so it's local. It can be true or not. If it's not, you don't have access. If it is, you have access, but they are going to be evaluated when you have several ones with an OR operand. I'm going to repeat that with better human words. This one needs always to be true. The other ones, only one needs to be true. Only one needs to be true, so that's why with my user at the moment, the last one I'm not taking it into account because I'm not part of that group, but the two other ones, this one needs to be true and this one as well because it's the only one. Okay, I go there, CRM, okay, I can see this one. Why? Because it's part of the same company, so that's good. And also because it's part of the same sales team. I'm going now to make a small change and I'm going to go on this one, but not from that user, from my user here, and I'm going to change the company and see how it evolves. Going back there, CRM, it's the one about Microsoft account right here, and I'm going to change the company here, and I'm going to say US company, and I can do that because I have access to companies here. If I do this, it's going to tell me, you have access to the companies, and you can select it, but you cannot write on a company if you don't select this one. So I'm going to select here, US company, and going there, now is the right one? Yeah, I can change it and it's in the US company. Going back here, if I refresh this one, you see I cannot see it. Why? It's really this rule being into effect, this one, the second one here, because it's not part of the company. So those two need to be available and evaluated and true at the same time. If you want to, there are multiple ways to explain that way of doing, but once you know how it works, it's great because you can cover all the use cases that you need. But maybe some explanation is better given here. And it's telling you how the rules are going to interact together. And you see this one is not a global one, it's not checked. It's because there's a group. If I go on the other one, it is checked. It's a global rule, sorry. Here you see interaction between rules. Global rules are restrictions. So that's what we see here. That one is a restriction. You can only see the ones that are linked to your company. They cannot be bypassed. It needs always to be true. Group-specific rules grant additional permissions, but are constrained within the bounds of global ones. That's what we saw. When I had my two rules, the one that was local was okay, but the other one is not, so there's a constraint given by the global one. And the funny thing, and that's maybe something that people struggle to understand, is that usually the first group rule, the local one, restricts while the other one give more access. And it's logical when you think about that. Let's go back here and let's not even talk about the global one, but just the local one. Remember, we were discussing about the access right, and we said just based on the access right, not the rules, the access rights. If I'm giving read access, I'm giving read access basically to everything. And then when we add rules, we give conditions. And the first one that we create is this one. So it's restrictive because my domain needs to be true. Okay, but if I add a second rule, I have two restrictions, but they can overlap or give more access rights. So it's a bit strange. But giving just this one restricts because I can only have access to lead opportunities that match this filter. But second one is this filter or this filter. So as I have a OR, it makes it more likely that I will have access to my record. So that's why we say this here. The first group restricts, but the other one will be relaxing the conditions. And of course, always take into account you have a global rule. And then we explain how the algorithm works with a small example here on how things are evaluated. So that's really, if you want to understand the rules, read that several times maybe, but you will get it. You will get it, and if you want some help from Odoo to give you access or not, or test your use case, do like I did. Create new rules, test them, see what you have access to, and see why things don't work. Most of the time when we debug that with partners or clients, it's simply because they forget other objects that are part of the computation, some rules that they believe is not working or acting and so usually that's by as I did here, by removing the read access, that you will see which rule works or which is limiting the access or not. So very important in your debugging. Get some knowledge about the access right, make a few tests, and you will see how things work and can be changed in Odoo. I think that for the rules discussion that you have, we are done with the general explanation. I think that in order to conclude this session, I want to cover a few extra cases that are that you will find in the code. You know, when we talk about the groups, we saw that we could see them in the fields as an argument in the views, but there are a few other places that maybe we can discuss about when we talk about groups. I'm going, and that will be more exploratory and explanatory as well, but I'm going to maybe have a look at a few specific cases. I'm not sure about this one, but I'm pretty sure that I will find something. Like if I go in one of the big modules like the sale one, let me go back here and let's type sale something. Okay, we have sale over there. I wouldn't be surprised that if I go into the models, I would find a few places where we mention a group on the field itself, and that is important as well to understand. Yes, no, not this one. Yeah, that I will need as well later. This one wasn't a good example. Maybe would it be on the product or in the accounting? I'm looking for a place. While I'm trying to find it. I'm going to explain what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a place where we have in the definition of a model. So it's a bit technical, but I think it's useful. In the place of a model, I want to see fields that are only available to a specific group, but this time not through the view, but through the model. So it means that whatever I do in terms of view, I won't have access to it if I'm not part of the right group. And there is a difference in terms of layer of security. You remember that I was explaining earlier today that going into a group and saying that, okay, you don't have access to some menu, it's a first layer, but maybe I have another way to access the same information through a different menu. So it's not very secure. It's one way of making the interface better and blah, blah, but it's not sufficient. Hiding something from the view is not sufficient either. Remember, I was here and I went to the contact and I told you, was it here? No, I think it was on the sale order that I said, let's hide the company. Let's go back on the Belgian one. Let's hide the company. There was something like this. But it's not because it's hidden that I cannot have access to it. And the best example of that is that you go on a list view, you see a few fields, but if you click on Action Export, then you have access to everything. You see the amount of fields that you can have is crazy. So restricting the access but giving access in export means nothing, because you restrict the access in the view, but people can still access to the information by exporting. If you want to circumvent that and avoid people from doing this, you need to check another extra layer of security, which is saying that some fields need to be linked to only some groups. And I'm looking for one. I'm pretty sure that I will find that, yes. Yeah, this one is a good one. In the fields of what is an account move, we explain that this one is only available if you are part of that group. And so you see you have a few places like those ones in the fields. I'm looking for another one. One that we get asked a lot, I think is the cost on the products. I will have a look at this one after. But this one is a good one as well. Partner credit warning, you need to be part of one of those two groups. Very important also. You see a comma here. That comma means that you can be part of that group, or the second one that will work. So you have that group notion inside the code that only makes a few people, a few groups have access to the field. And that is a bit more secure than hiding things from the interface. A few other things that we do that are related to access rights, I'm giving here a few hints that are not really super structured, but important to keep in mind, is that sometimes we are going to check if people have access to a group before performing something, and that has group notion. Yeah, it's in the models. You see very deep in Odoo, we explain user as group, and we are going to check. It was not just as group, it's the user as group. So I'm going to make my new search here. User as group. We are going to check, do my user has that particular group? And if we do, we are going to let people do something. If they don't, we are going to send an error message. I'm going to try to find an example. Yeah, this one about the expenses may be a good one. Let's have a look. Where we say, let's hide that. we check if the user is part of the expense user group or the account group. And if yes, we are going to use a specific domain. But if I'm an expense approver, so if I have more access right, then maybe I should relax the domain that I'm going to use. There are a few other places. This one I remember that I know that we use is the one around the bank accounts, because bank accounts, it's a bit weird. We don't want people to be able to change bank accounts or to define that a supplier has a different bank account. Maybe my bank account, that would be great. We are going to pay our suppliers through my bank account. I would love that. If I go to the groups, this is best explained in one of the specific groups. Let me find that, because it's validate bank account. Yeah, this one. So I'm going to use a little trick here. I'm going to use validate bank account. I'm going to find the XML ID so that I can find directly, oh, not there. Find directly what I'm looking for. Metadata here, group validate bank account. I'm selecting this one over there. Let's find it in GitHub. Just want to show not the code, but why it has some importance to keep that one in mind. And we see that we have some Python file around this. And here we want to know, and that's what we are going to do it. We want to know, can I validate bank accounts? And we are going to verify that my user has that following group. And if it has, that's okay. But if it doesn't, I'm going to reuse this, because I'm pretty sure that we have a place where we are going to give an error message, if I remember well. Okay, if you don't do it here, we are going to do it over there. So it must be another place that we do that. Respector bank. There's a place where we are going to display an error message if we are not part of that group. But if you cannot find it that way, it's either to that computing or on the bank itself. Let me check again this one. Yes, it's maybe on the bank. I can emulate that so that I can see the message, the error message that we will get. I'm going to change my access rights and say that I'm not part of that group anymore. And select this one, remove this. Can I do that? Yes. And I'm going now to change, to try to modify that validation of bank accounts. And I think that little trick can be done. Do we have the bank accounts here? Nope. Let's go back here. Bank accounts. All right. And I'm going to say that this one I can send money. Yeah, I cannot. That's what it does. You see, we are going to say it's read-only if we are not part of a bank account. Now it's not an error message. Maybe that changed with version 17.4. I remember that before we had something that was a bit different, but here we use that notion. Main thing is that we use that notion for the read-only, and we compute that based on the has group thing, like user has group. We saw it here, user has group, and so it depends if I have the access or not. It will change. Let's go back. Let's change my access again, so I can show this better. I will validate that. I save. I go back on my bank thing. I'm going to refresh, and there I now have access to trust it. Okay, so that's because I changed my access right. So you have groups notions like those one. User as group is important. You have another notion that is sometimes something that we use it very carefully. We have some pseudo, so super user things. Like here, when we want to make some search, we are going to use that, I think, on some controllers also. So when you are on the website, we are going to, I'm going to find a good example, to bypass the access right of the portal user, because otherwise portal access is really, really small. We want sometimes to just, in a limited matter, check and make a search ignoring the limiting access rights. So you will find a few places where we pseudo things. So very important, gives you temporary access rights for that research. So that is something that you need to take into account also, that pseudo. Very important as well, when you are going to use, if we go here, if you use, I think you can see that on my profile. If you are going to use account security and have API keys, you connect through the API, but you will be as a user, so it will have the same notion of groups. Exactly the same error will be sent to your script based on your access rights. So when you need to use the API, be sure of the user you are connecting with. There are a few notions, same idea as has group. There's a I think, I'm not sure about the syntax here, so maybe I will struggle, but very important to know is that there's a is portal something. Yeah, user is portal. It's defined somewhere deep in the definition of what is a user. Just to know that sometimes, yes, is portal. Yeah, it just something that you have on all the users so that you can check quickly if the user is part of the portal group. If he's part of the portal group, it's going to send you yes, is, or not, is not. And you have a few things like those ones. So maybe sometimes you just want to check this, and it can be used in the rules. I remember doing that for one of my colleagues, where we just wanted to know at the moment a rule is evaluated, I wanted to know if the user is part of portal. So you can have something like, we can work a bit about that. Just make a few tests again on my favorite user that was Henry, that is hidden here. We are going to change something, and we are going to say that we want him to have access to all the leads if he's not a public user or a portal user, which is a bit weird as a rule, but just to illustrate how it works. We are going to go to the own user as we did. We are going to reuse the same rights. I'm going to change the record rule that we changed, and this time I'm going to say either this, or I can add another one and say another condition that would be, oops, the screen is a bit further, so I'm not sure about what I'm writing here. That should be okay, and I'm going to add another set here, and I'm saying it's a pure try here. Okay, I'm opening lots of things on my computer. Okay. Here I'm going to say what can I have? User ID. I don't know if that syntax is correct, by the way. I can check that if it works. If it doesn't, I'm going to skip this one. I think it won't work. In fact, I will rather go in the rules that already exist and see if we use that directly. Not in those rules, but the to record rules. Because that one you can use it in the domain. We don't have an example here, but it could be used for such a thing. I'm going to try it anyway. Not sure this one will work, but user is portal. I'm going to create another one. Because as we said, this one can be used for rules like those one, but it can also be that we create new ones. And I'm going to create a new one. If not portal, you can see everything. Okay, I'm going to do it also on the lead and opportunity thing. It's not a global rule. I'm going to say that it's for own documents only, and there I'm going to use that, and user is portal, that is it. No, or is public. I'm going to say not user is portal. I just need to be sure about this one. Yeah, seems alright. I'm going to save that. Yeah. There must be a way to do that. Remember, I did it. I will come back and comment on this one about knowing if my current user is part of the portal, but you could use some rules like those one to give access or not based on the specific type of user that you have. So you have that notion of portals. You have a few specific controllers that we use as well, where you have that notion of access right that is important. You have in the add-ons here, sale, maybe website sale is going to help me better, because we have something like over there, we have in the controllers, in the main, we are going to see a few places where we have routes, route like this one. So if I want to have access to the sale place, you see that we are going to have that kind of notion of auth. Like, do I need to be public? Do I need to be portal? Do I need to be a regular user? So that auth place, we are going to find it in several places. For every time we have a route, public, 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 public. Here user. So you see, you don't have access to everything as a public user in the website e-commerce part. So that's another place where those access rights will have some importance. And I think that's pretty much it. There are many other things that I'm sure you will have in terms of questions for the access rights, rules, notion, group. So don't hesitate to comment, to ask for more. We are going to cover that in the next Odoo Insider sessions anyway. Very, very important. Always test those kind of changes. Yes, you can change that through your modules. Yes, you can also contact us if you want to get some more help. This is part usually to all the training sessions that we have with our new partners, because it's so important to configure the access right correctly. We offer a basic setting, but very often we want to change that. That's really part of the philosophy that we have here. So get to learn that, because it's super, super important. Okay, time to conclude here. I hope you enjoyed this. Don't hesitate, again, ask questions, get trained, and we'll see how you perform. And I would be more than happy to answer the questions that you have around that topic. Bye-bye, guys.